These are my top tips for getting the best out of your sweet peas throughout the season. It's early spring here in the Trials Garden at Wisley, and we are planting out our autumn sown sweet peas. We plant sweet peas most years in the Trials Garden, and we have just finished a 2-year trial of grandiflora sweet peas, which are the most fragrant type. And today we're planting out a display bed of all the plants that had an award in that trial. Here I have one of our pots of sweet peas. There are 6 peas in each pot. We sowed these in the autumn and put these into a cold frame in December, and they've been outside since that time. We hardened them off before we put them into the cold frame. Occasionally in mild weather, they do tend to grow quite quickly, and you can see these are already up to the top of the support that we're using. So a couple of weeks ago we pinched these out, where we just take the growing points off at the tip with a thumb and a forefinger, and this just allows them to branch out a bit more and stops them from getting too leggy before you plant them out. We're growing them on a mesh, as you can see. This is a plastic mesh that we bought when we have been growing them in our trials. We've been using these for 3 or 4 years now, and we continue to use these, but you could also grow these just on twine and canes. You could recreate anything like this in a pot to grow these yourselves. It supports them quite nicely to the top of the support, which will then allow us to train them on to our main supports after we've planted them into the ground. Mesh is very good to grow sweet peas onto. Doesn't have to be metal. We use these year after year, and so metal is very useful for us. It could be jute twine, any other material, but having a mesh is very, very good, because the sweet peas produce their tendrils as they're growing. You can see the little tendrils on the top of the plant here, and having a mesh is just a really easy way to get them to cling on to support. So we are going to construct a support out of 2 sections of this metal mesh, and it will also allow us, as an open-centered support, to take sweet peas as a cut flower. We find that it's much better to grow them on an open support. If you're using them as a cut flower, they get more light and air and they grow outwards onto that support. So when we plant these sweet peas today, it's really important to remember to water the plant in when you plant. Today it's actually quite a wet day, and it's been quite a wet March at Wisley. I may not water these in today, but typically you should water your plants in when you plant them. It also just settles that soil around the root ball and gives the plant a good head start. So now we've planted our sweet peas, let's think about aftercare. They're quite a hungry plant, and so on this bed at the moment I have quite a nutritious mulch actually on the bed. This is doing a number of things. It's also suppressing weeds, but it's also feeding the sweet peas. You might not be using a mulch, and if I wasn't using this mulch, I would liquid feed the sweet peas. I would use an organic liquid feed, and I would feed them probably every couple of weeks through the growing season as soon as they start flowering, and that'll just give them that strength and that vigour just to keep producing that flower. Maybe in the next 2 or 3 weeks I'd be looking to tie those on to the support, whatever you're using to support them, whatever mesh you're using, whatever obelisk. I would gently attach them with twine to the support, and that will allow them to grow, and it will give them time for their tendrils to start to grow and start to attach to that support naturally. Now what can we expect through the season? Well, we're going to expect a terrific display. These are grandiflora sweet peas, and they're the most fragrant type of sweet pea. So the fragrance as you walk past them is absolutely amazing. They're incredibly colourful, and they're also incredibly vigorous. So when the plant is mature, we'd be looking at deadheading, taking cut flowers twice a week, I would say, and they will produce flowers at such a quick rate you'll have no problem filling bunches of vases from an obelisk like this with 6 plants.